have three very distinguished people joining us. First is Claudia Capera. She is the coordinator of sustainable development projects at UNDP Colombia. Second, we will have Cesar Jerez. He is the president of Frutos de Paz. And third, we will have Lina Munoz Avila, who is the director of specialization and master in environmental law and management at the Universidad del Rosario. And I want to also encourage people to stay with us. After the end of this reflection session, we will have a brief tutorial on how to use Remo. This is an exciting new platform, and it allows people to move around online, very much like at a conference in person. And we will have an exciting poster session with more than 20 presenters in English and in Spanish. So we hope that you will stay with us through this closing session and into the poster session. With that, I'd like to turn the floor over to Claudia Capera for some reflections. You're muted still.
Muy buenas tardes a todos.
Good afternoon, everybody. Well, the reflections, today's reflections have been very important. We see how conflict leaves lots of ruptures, and post-conflict is characterized because it has scenarios of uncertainty and instability. Basically, I would correct 4 big topics that I think that reflections were closed. The opening and in governance and land. One of the main points with debates what's land is complex topic that has several tensions, and addressing this topic the way it goes will generate reconfiguration of territory. Emphasis in some areas with more conflictivity or less depending on how land is handled. So in this topic, I think that the reflections oriented to a coordinated management, the need of institutional presence, and very important compliance, point 1 of the accord, the multipurpose cadastre, and the need to protect the life of those that have access to land. In this point, I think it was very important to see the relationship between at the beginning and at the tables for the Escazú agreement. The second topic that I think that was key was governance. And here we touched on several topics, such as the need and importance of building trust. No strategy will constitute for peace building will work if we have minimum trust. So as we saw the initial presentations, what we have to work on a lot? Political willingness, build political willingness to have these different processes, decentralized management, and active participation, transforming participation in communities. The type of participation was also something key. The next topic, very key, was deforestation control and in different forest areas, jungles. Well, it was important to mention the importance of articulating those strategies within PEDETs and the importance of making change in forest management models. The need to have collective management in forests. No actor can do it on their own. I mean, the planning frameworks, communities by themselves, they cannot do it on their own. They need collective management. They also need to strengthen capacities in community organizations. Those are based in forest management. They need to strengthen capacity, generate incentives, and to resolve deforestation. That's one of the main conclusions. The other point that was not touched on tables is the solutions in PD territories, like to have sustainable territories, requires that dialogue between community perspectives and innovation possibilities that we have in this 21st century. So to develop sustainable productive system, we need drinking water, energy that does not exist in these areas. So we need to find renewable energy systems, alternative systems. So it requires innovation. We need to have the academia, we need engineering, and we need a lot of community knowledge to find new solutions, innovative solutions that are not there yet. We have processes with high level of difficulty. We have done it, but if that's part of territorial strategies, that'd be very different. That's something that we also had at the land table, and how we move from positive experiences that achieve the objective to broader strategies so that we can articulate territories. So those are the big challenges. And I believe that the last part that I would like to say is that we have legal frameworks that provide options, the national international levels, but we have that high complexity that we have in this country is from planning to action and how to make it a reality. But we do have experiences that show that. I think that there are signs of hope. And like the study conducted by UNDP, there are lights and shadows, but we need to light the peace path. Those would be my conclusions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to turn next to Cesar.
Good afternoon. I would like to say hello and extend my greetings to everyone in Colombia, anybody who's listening to us right now. I think that it's been very enriching, problems that have been mentioned. The summary could be that there is tortuous, difficult process for environmental governance to build peace. There is a systematic lack of compliance of accords. There was an expectation to achieve indigenous communities inclusions, to develop the country with justice, equity, with conservation, of course, but lack of compliance generated frustration in communities. And there are armed actors, criminal bands, or gangs that have emerged in many places in Colombia. But not to be apocalyptic, I'd like to say that today's meeting tells us that there is this path for hope. In the first panel, it was said that based on a study conducted by UNDP, it was able to, to prove that there is a regional agenda by peasant communities, indigenous communities that live problems every day there in the Amazon. So there is this possibility to link institutional resources and cooperation resources. That is very important. How those resources articulate to solve the problem, but that necessarily happens because of the institutional presence. So the problem is that since there are new armed actors, militarization in the Amazon is the everyday thing. So believing and thinking about a police and military solution to deforestation is a path. So institutional articulation is needed. Public policy, articulation, investment that require compliance agreements. So without compliance of what was agreed on, if we don't have that, we cannot come to a social, economic, political, environmental solution. So a government that does not promote accord, a government that boycotted accords, created a new phase of war, conflict, and instability in the region. We need to move on according to peace accord agendas, like Jennifer mentioned. If comprehensive rural reform is implemented, if we can substitute illicit crops or illegal crops in the Amazon, we will have this path for hope. So part from what is needed is this political scenario where there's compliance to peace accords, and by complying with the accords requires this scenario that has institutional presence, cooperation through a new model, institutional presence model, and international cooperation model. This model that links people, because we have seen that there are efforts, international cooperation from states, governments. However, those efforts imply investment, and they are diluted in institutionality. Many times this like with lack of prestige, with corruption. Therefore, those cooperation efforts do not materialize in concrete results. So we do need a new model, institutional presence and international cooperation model. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cesar. And our final speaker, Professor Munoz.
Muchas gracias. Muy buenas tardes para todos y para todas. Es un gusto estar
Good afternoon, everybody. It is a pleasure to share in this last part of the session, environmental governance for peace in Colombia. First of all, I would like to thank the Department of Environment and Externado University and all other institutions behind this initiative. After following all the presentations that we have had today, I asked myself a question that is well related with the title of the conference, and there's no doubt. The answer is complex and needs different approximations. What is and how is environmental peace built in Colombia? And in the presentations I have heard, I have found different guidelines which are very important to respond or to answer this question. Many researchers today with different perspectives have posed interesting views based on research they are conducting from a dogmatic perspective, based on case analysis, mixed, and that want to have approximations for Colombia and approximations that are related to the questions for the conference, such as what does environmental legality mean, rule of law in the context of natural resources and peace in Colombia, what laws and institutions are working and how they need to be conducted, what the next steps are to handle natural resources in the country. And in that sense, I identify the keywords that probably you have probably identified in the presentations, such as land and forests, justice, environmental rule of law, territory, participation, extractive industries, rule of law, bioculturality, legality, democracy, and climate change. And those questions, those words take me to my next point, which is highlight key messages in the presentations. And I would like to point out what those common points that I identified in those common points, listening from two viewpoints. One, the going forward, what needs to be done. And the other viewpoint is the stakeholders who are involved in building environmental peace building and governance in Colombia. There are mainly 5 topics or messages. The first one is related to combining different territorial right regimes. This is based from one of the presentations in session 3C. They mentioned that collective economic incentives are needed to protect forests and efforts in real time to be able to protect them. There is no doubt that we could have a virtuous circle to consolidate territorial peace. Second of all, presenters proposed that there is a need to find a strategy to have natural conservation. There's no doubt that pay per environmental services have had difficulties because social tissue reconstruction based on environmental instruments implied a greater challenge that require institutional agreements that were not completed. As Claudia mentioned and Cesar mentioned, it has been difficult to comply with environmental points agreed in the peace accord. And the next point is the participation, citizen participation as a condition to be able to have environmental peace. And this is linked to legality. And this is linked to legitimacy of decisions, right? Aligned with democratic principles included in Constitution from 1991. That participation needs to be reflective in effective processes that involve not only those views of those people that live in cities, but we also need territorial participation with ethnical approach. We saw the importance of indigenous participation, Afro-descendant participation, and in general, ethnic groups participation as a effective way to transform social environmental conflicts. Lastly, I would like to mention a point in 3B, and is mentioning that environmental governance and legality to handle natural resources can only turn in a peace building tool if it is built from communities that live there. That's one of the messages I would like to highlight. I would like to close this intervention by listening to all the conferences that were recorded. Please join us in the poster session, and please join us tomorrow as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Munoz. I wanted to make a couple of quick announcements following on what you just said. First of all, we will continue this discussion tomorrow with a policy dialogue that draws upon the presentations and discussions from today. And we will be considering options and priorities for improving environmental governance for peace in Colombia. There is limited space, but we do have some spots still available. If you're interested in joining us, please email us at the following email. I'll put it in the chat right now. For those who are not able to join the event, this is the policy dialogue tomorrow, we will also live stream the opening and closing panels on YouTube. The opening panel will be from 9 o'clock to 10:20 Colombia time, and the closing panel will be from 12 to 1:30 Colombia time. The links to the live streams are the same as in the email we sent you this morning. We will also put them in the chat below. And before I close this panel, I wanted to do two things. First of all, please stay. We have the poster session coming up. There are a lot of very exciting and interesting ideas, and we hope that you will be able to engage, and it's very much of a discussion format. And after the poster session, there is a reception for people who just want to hang out, have some wine or whatever. I'm happy to share my wine with anyone who can get to my house in the next hour. But seriously, we do hope that you will be able to stay with us and reflect and just have some time to talk with people you don't know. And with that, I'd like to turn the, I do want to also thank very much the three speakers who spent the time to join us through the conference and share their reflections. I loved the remarks in the areas that you focused on, and I was particularly struck by the framing of complexity. There are no easy answers here. There are some things that we need to focus on, but there's so much that needs to be done. And so it's a very challenging situation. It's also incredibly rich and rewarding one.